So today I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about a topic that's really dear to me, which is normalizing shamanic consciousness. And in normalizing shamanic consciousness, it opens up so many possibilities for how we live in the world and the conversations that we have with people, right? So for example, something as simple as if we're looking at our yard and what landscaping we're putting in our yard, and we're having a conversation with someone who also shares shamanic consciousness with us, then we can say, well, you know, that tree was sharing with me that it wanted a bit more space. So can you cut it back a little bit? Or can we plant this over here? Or the earth is telling me that it needs this. Okay, so this is part of how we tend the earth, not just on a global scale, but on a local scale, on a micro scale, right? That way we're able to take action locally in very small ways, and as that consciousness spreads amongst people, then that spreads on to, you know, others and others and others and others. It becomes exponential, right? So instead of being the lone house in the neighborhood with a food forest and a thriving organic garden that's done permaculture style, the whole neighborhood is that way. And that becomes the norm within even a suburb, okay? Not just the outlier within, you know, a rural area or something like that. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking, one example of what I'm referring to when I talk about normalizing shamanic consciousness, and why that's important to me, and I think important to the web of life as a whole. Right? Because we then become conscious of our relationship as human beings with the web of life, the role that we play in the web of life, okay? And our roles as caretakers, guardians, healers of the web of life. So it can be as simple as, oh, here's this piece of land that is degraded and I want to restore it. What can I do to restore it, right? When I scatter in the woods, maybe a fallen tree, I can put that in a way that will create a habitat for small ground dwelling animals, right? If I have to harvest wood, I can do it in a way that's conscious, that creates more sustainability rather than less in the future. Okay, so this is the type of shamanic consciousness that I'm speaking about, and it comes naturally. We don't have, sure, we can educate ourselves, we can do lots of research, and there's a positive thing to learning that on a scientific level. And then there's a part of it where we don't even need that. We just tune in. So when we have that consciousness and we remain attuned to the environment around us, when we're attuned to the web of life in that way, then it's easy for us to know what right action is. It's easy for us to understand, okay, this is what I need to do in order to be a caretaker in a very small way, moment by moment, day by day. Okay, that's where I go with this idea of normalizing shamanic consciousness, and how that can be helpful to our roles as caretakers of the web of life. Okay, it also makes it a lot more fun in having conversations with our fellow humans if people are on that wavelength with each other. We feel, oh yeah, we have a community. We're not so alone in this. We have a community of people who are working together, and in so doing, we model this type of behavior, and this becomes the norm rather than the outlier. Okay, and eventually, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the concept of a tipping point, or what was referred to as the 100th monkey. Maybe some of you remember that book that was written in the 1950s. And what that refers to is when a certain mass, a certain concentration, or a certain percentage of humans, or in their case, monkeys, what they were studying that book, becomes aware of something, a behavior, then the rest automatically adapt that behavior, and it becomes the norm. And the study that was done involved monkeys and peeling bananas. And they showed that after a certain percentage of the monkeys start to peel the bananas, all of a sudden the rest of the whole gang of monkeys peeled them, like instantaneously. It became a quantum development. So in the first few monkeys that were coming on. There, it was one at a time, two at a time. And then when they got to that tipping point, then dozens and dozens of dozens came on afterwards and decided to wash their bananas just like everyone else, just because that was the idea of it spreading on a quantum level. And so when we talk about normalizing shamanic consciousness, this is what I'm referring to as well, is that if enough of us bring that into our lives day in and day out, then all of a sudden one day it becomes the norm throughout all of society. So we're hoping to reach that tipping point. Okay, so thanks everybody for tuning in to this journey for us. And before we start, I'd like to go around the virtual room here and have everybody introduce themselves and just share a little bit about your shamanic path, what you feel about normalizing shamanic consciousness, the web of life, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. So Christy, why don't you go first?
Hello to you all. I'm Christy and I am in Auckland in New Zealand. Nice to see all of your faces today. And so currently I'm working through Scott's Advanced Shamanic Practitioner course. And I try to come and do weekly healing of the web of life. I find that I'm very deeply connected with nature and nature speaks to me and through me. And I guess this is what, I'm bringing out to share with others and to teach others as well, and work with them doing shamanic healing to shift their any limiting beliefs or blocks to allow them to move forward and connect a little deeper into this beautiful web of life. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. Hi, Mindy. Nice to see you. You introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi. Yeah, nice to speak with you and meet you all. My name is Mindy. I'm just wrapping up slowly the fundamentals course with Scott. This is my first time receiving shamanic training, but I've definitely been plugged into the shamanic way of life for a very long time. It's nice to learn some techniques to bolster that way of life. And yeah, I think, I don't know, it's hard to speak about it's hard to speak about this question, I think. I just think, I don't know, sorry, I'm nervous.
Okay, don't be nervous, it's fine. Well, I think what you're trying to articulate is really important, actually. And that is that even before you had any training, you had an intuitive understanding and knowing of your connection with the web of life, and right. An intuitive, yeah, right?
It caused some problems in my life, and so this particular subject that we're going to be discussing today is very important to me, and helping people who may otherwise be funneled into the mental health system and hurt by that system when it may not be the right fit. But yeah, I think opening people's minds to the fact that this world exists is really important to me.
Yeah, thanks, Mindy. That's also really important. That's a whole nother aspect that we haven't even discussed yet about the judgments within the society that marginalize people who have this type of consciousness and do try to funnel, as you say, funnel them into maybe the mental health system or something like that. Basically because people will feel threatened. People often feel threatened by their own disconnection when they witness your connection. That's just part of how life is. And then they become defensive and the norm. So there's a whole nother aspect about what normalizing shamanic consciousness means for humanity and helping people who have this intuitive connection and understanding, but maybe don't have the tools because we as a society haven't shared those tools. In a lot of indigenous societies or shamanic societies, young children were given these tools. Okay, young children were given these tools. 3, 4, 5 years old, children knew that not only all the plants in their area, but by 5 years old, they'd already talked to the spirits of all the plants in their area. and knew which ones were, what uses were for which plants, right? And which plants would be used to help in whatever situation was there. Okay, so that's really something that we don't find quite commonly in modern Western society. Okay, but there is a precedent for that within human history, and a broad global precedent for that. So when we bring that back, that connection to every plant, every rock, every tree, every animal, we have a broader understanding and appreciation for our connection with the web of life and our role within the web of life, rather than this myth that humans have dominion over the web of life and everything is here to serve us. Actually, no, it's a symbiosis. We're here to serve the web of life as much as the web of life serves us. Okay, we work together. And when we can help provide grounded, clear methods of accessing shamanic consciousness and then returning into ordinary reality and functioning in day-to-day ordinary reality in the flesh effectively, even more effectively, once we've cleared these things from us in the shamanic realm, in the non-ordinary reality realm, that's when we're normalizing shamanic consciousness. Whereas if we're going and accessing the spirit mind, but then we're losing our grounding and we're flying off into some place that is, let's say, potentially borderline in the mental health realm, right? Where it can be judged as, well, this person isn't able to function day to day in society because they're so in the spirit mind all the time, then we get lost. Okay, so this is why we have to have that balance where we say this is a valid, not only a valid, but an essential part of our conscious awareness to use our spirit mind and to have shamanic consciousness. And not only that, it helps us function day to day in normal waking consciousness more effectively than if we don't address it. And when we have that methodology, and this is what I aim to teach, this is what I aim to pass on to everybody. When we have that methodology and it improves our day-to-day functioning, it actually clears our neofrontal cortex, which is the thinking mind, to be able to function in a better way, in a more efficient way. Okay, that makes sense. Does that make sense, Mindy?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for speaking about that.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up. It's really important. It's a whole nother aspect of normalizing shamanic consciousness. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi, sorry about that. Yes, so I'm Sharon and I've been with Scott now for a while, just doing these Zooms online. So pretty familiar with, like, I really appreciate your style and your approach. And seems like 2 months goes by really fast, like the time in between that we gather. So yeah, so for me, the normalizing shamanic culture, I think that's a hard one because we're so seeped into traditions here in the US. I'm in the US. So I just find one-on-one is my most effective way to, I just look for like someone else to mention something where there might be where they might have an openness to it. And I share it with people that I'm close to, that this is obviously part of who I am and what I'm about. And so that's really where it's at for me, and I without sometimes even discussing it, I did get to just yesterday discuss it with someone who was just mentioned the word energy, and I just shared how sometimes nature starts communicating to us in a way that he hadn't even thought of. So, like one conversation can build on another, and that's what I hope for. But I know in the meantime, it's like people are very judgmental. So you're just like, not everybody's ready for the conversation has been my experience. But for those that are, you're very grateful when you find like what you consider people that are already experiencing it and have already learned that there's other ways to approach the normalcy of how we address issues.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Thanks for sharing that. And that's also very important. We don't want to force it on people at all.
Right.
Okay, we don't want to force it on people. But when we embody it, and people look at us and they go, oh, wow, look at you. You're embodying something that I can't articulate. You're happy, you're relaxed, and you seem kind of different than everybody else in your consciousness and your awareness. And yet you're also day-to-day highly functional in this Western world. Then it starts to create a gravity or an attraction. And people, it kind of sparks people's curiosity and interest And that's when somebody might, as you say, give you a little opening or mention, and so they become drawn to you, and then that opening allows you to, lead forward with this idea of, well, of course we're all connected to the web of life. Of course we are, right? So yeah, thank you, Sharon, for sharing that. DJ, would you like to share with us?
Sure. I've been studying shamanic practice. Actually, I just passed my 7th anniversary with the Foundation of Shamanic Studies. I found you, Scott, a happy accident one day on YouTube. There was your ad, and it was like, oh, well, I'm in the middle of a lockdown. Maybe I should check this out. I think I've been very quietly doing my shamanic work. Up until recently, I have worked in mental health, and I found it very judgmental. If you started to speak about upper world or lower world, or talking to spirit, you always got that strange look. But I'm out of mental health at the moment. I'm looking for work, and I very boldly have put on my resume the courses and my studying of shamanic work, because it's very much part of who I am. It's not getting me a job, but it feels like it's a step forward of connecting and putting myself back together.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, DJ, for sharing that. And it may not have gotten you a job yet, but it may get you another job that you haven't even envisioned yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really, it's really nice to hear that you've, you're putting yourself forward in that way. That's wonderful. That's wonderful to embrace that. That's, part of what we talked about last time with spiritual grounding is, yeah, this is what I do. And spiritual grounding, we have to have that grounding in order to normalize shamanic consciousness, right? If we're not grounded, we can be pushed off of our truth so easily, right? That's a big part of, for those of you who have taken the intermediate training, we talk about the agreements and uprooting our agreements, commanding our second attention, being able to find those holes, those weak spots in which other people's energy is able to push us off of our grounding by anchoring into our vulnerabilities. Okay. And so once we've resolved that, our grounding becomes so much stronger that when we do get challenged in a judgmental society, and it can be a very judgmental society, then it's easy for us to ground that energy and then move forward according to whatever the path of right relationship is in that moment, right? So it's always relational. There's never a predetermined idea of what right relationship is or what right action is. It's relational to what the stimulus is that is being sent towards us. So if someone is approaching us in a judgmental way, but they have a very kind heart and they're actually coming from a place of authentic concern for us, our response to that is going to be very different than someone who's, actually coming from a place of trying to bully us because they're trying to take something that doesn't belong to them, right? And both can be experiences that we have in the world, right? I'm sure we've all had many of those types of experiences, all kinds. So yeah, it's really good to hear that you're putting yourself out there in that way. And, it feels that will lead to whatever your right path is in bringing that forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, DJ. And hi, Elle, could you introduce yourself to us?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you. Hi, Elle.
Hi. Well, thank you all for having me. I'm very grateful for that. This is my first time, my first experience, and I am really looking forward to it. But as you were talking, it reminded me a number of years ago, I did a workshop, a spiritual workshop with a spiritual leader from Ghana. And it reminded me of the monkeys, because in my vision, it was like the world is as it is, like people were at war, people were working, like everybody's doing their thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, at first, like they just started a couple of people started holding hands. And then it was like the whole world just, you know, embraced and held hands. But it was definitely that tipping point where everyone just like stopped what they were doing and came immediately and all held hands. So I'm very excited for this, and I'm very grateful for you guys having me. I am from Orlando, Florida.
Thanks, Elle. Thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself. That's a beautiful vision as well that you share about the world holding hands. And I just want to check in because I think Tiffany sent you, forwarded you the email, correct, with the How to Journey video. And did you have a
Yeah.
chance to watch that?
I did. I not the whole thing, but I watched. I think I'm good on journeying, and I think I
Perfect.
have my spirit animal.
Okay, perfect. That's what my question was. Thank you, Elle. And Laura, you want to say hi to everybody?
Yes, hi. I'm Laura from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm fairly new to this shamanic. I've only been practicing for probably just a couple years, and I'm like Sharon. If something comes up in a one-on-one situation, and I feel comfortable with expanding on the conversation, I feel free to do that. I do have a connection, a big connection with nature. I walk at least 5 days a week in some woods, and I like touching the trees as I'm walking, and sometimes I'll go and hug one and give it a kiss, and so that's pretty much my experience so far.
Thanks, Laura. That's beautiful, and it reminds me of an experience I had when we were up in the state park here. My daughter and I were in the state park, and we like to sometimes just go into the forest and sit quietly in the trees off the trail, and try to blend in. And so we were doing that, and we were just, blended into the woods and relaxing and eating some fruit that we had picked. And all of a sudden, this woman and her husband come walking down the trail, and we had seen them before. She had been talking to the trees, right? And talking to nature. And then came around the corner, and we were just very quiet. We didn't say anything. We just were observing her, right? And then they come around the corner, and she sees us, and she just like pops out of her skin, right? She's like, "Oh my God, I'm not crazy. I'm telling you, I'm not crazy at all." And I'm like, "Oh, we don't think you're crazy. We think that's normal. Like, we do that all the time." And we had this beautiful conversation. She's like, "Oh my God, that's so beautiful. You're teaching your daughter, your little girl, to talk to nature. I do that all the time, but I don't let people know because they'll judge me." And I'm like, "No, it's perfect. This is what we're supposed to do. This is how we connect." So it just reminded me of that. And yeah, thanks for sharing, Laura, and thanks for joining us again.
Yeah.
And Chandel, will you share with us?
Hi, everybody. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and I'm super happy to be here. I've been doing shamanic workshops for not very long, maybe about 1.5 years, and I've done some journeying. And I also have a background in Reiki, Sekhem, and Akashic Records. And I'm really interested in normalizing all healing modalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So yeah, when I talk about shamanic consciousness, what I'm referring to is all of the energetic healing modalities, not just shamanism. Okay, because it's all of it, right? Having the consciousness really is about the consciousness of the spirit mind, that it's okay for us to access, not only okay for us to, but imperative for us to be able to consciously access our spirit mind and that aspect of our consciousness, which is often ignored. So if you're doing something like Akashic Records or Reiki or energy healing or shamanism or any type of healing modality in that way, that is hopefully what we're doing when we are accessing consciously that part of our consciousness, okay, that aspect of our mind. And one of the things that I talk about, for those of you who have been in the courses with me, is the ability to willfully switch back and forth between our logic mind and our spirit mind, and the importance of being able to do that quickly and easily. So the reason why I do the journeys with the drum is because that is something that we can entrain to, that's very easy to use, and it's not addictive, and it's very easy on the body. Okay, some people can actually switch back and forth without the drum at all. Okay, and eventually we all learn to entrain. We can entrain to our heartbeat and be able to access that. But the point is we want to be able to do it voluntarily and at will, so that we can call ourselves back into our logic mind when we want to be, and we can call ourselves into our spirit mind when we want to be. And the link between that ability and healing is so strong, and I'm talking about self-healing, is so strong because when we go into fight or flight, when we have any type of trauma reaction, our neofrontal cortex goes offline, our logic mind goes offline, and then we begin to, without our voluntary control, respond from imprinted patterns that are within our spirit mind, that are within our limbic system. And so when we start to respond from these imprints that have been encoded in our limbic system because of trauma, we don't know how to respond. We can't do anything about it. We can actually sometimes even witness ourselves messing up. And I'm sure maybe some of you have even had that experience where, oh my God, I'm really blowing it right now. Right? But you can't stop yourself because the limbic system is so strong, and it's actually taken your neofrontal cortex offline. Okay? And so we're responding from this deep-rooted pattern. And so the healing, the self-healing that occurs, or if we're doing session work, the healing that we hope to impart to our clients is that we're reprogramming that limbic system so that our unconscious patterns, the patterns that are encoded there, are changed to healthy patterns. And that's another reason why when we normalize this shamanic consciousness, it's so important. Okay, it gives us all an ability to shift those patterns that have, and I'm talking about the unhealthy self-limiting patterns that have plagued us for a long time. And when we make this available to the society as a whole, the society as a whole becomes much harder to manipulate, right? Because if we have societal patterns where people are triggered, okay, and there's just been some very interesting congressional testimony in the United States about this, about inciting anger and conflict and how that increases engagement on certain social media platforms, right? So if somebody tries to, let's say hack, or a group of engineers tries to hack into human consciousness and manipulate the wounds of human consciousness in such a way where they have limbic reactions that incites conflict and violence, there's not much that people can do until they learn how to reprogram that limbic system for themselves. Okay, and once we do, then those other things, we don't respond to those types of stimuli in that same way anymore. We have a different response. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Shandell. That's a hugely important part of what we're trying to do. Thank you. And let's see, who do we have down now? Leslie, will you say hi to everybody? You're just muted. Just unmute yourself.
Hey, how are you? Long
Hi.
time no see. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now. Thanks for joining us.
So glad to be part of the group. I apologize. I was like trying to log in. I caught you for a second and then I got thrown back out and I'm like, I'm going in. So it's been a while, but I have been listening on my own because some of the meetings, I've been traveling a bit and I have missed some of the meetings, but it's wonderful to be part of the group today. And I was listening to everyone and I was thinking, I've been in this field is all I know because I'm an acupuncturist and body worker and, and I do the sound healing bowls and I love the journeying and most of my networking does that, something in that. And so that's what I'm associated with. But one thing that I've learned is that maybe people, not all the time, so it's just general statement, but one thing that I've learned is that people that are unaware, that may be judgmental, they may be judgmental not because they don't desire it or want it, but they don't know it. And it hits their vulnerability because it takes their ego and makes them go, oh gosh, she knows something I don't know. So what I've tried to do is work with people, because this is all I have, is with, if I see it's a trigger word, or if I see me losing them, or them like setting up walls in front of me as we're speaking, like I've hit a sensitivity within them that they don't know it, but they feel like I'm, whether I am or not, I mean, I'm not trying, I'm just being myself. But if they perceive me as having a superiority complex, or acting like I'm talking down or being condescending because I know how to do this thing that they don't, I try to humble myself. And I humble myself a lot. And I feel like, not that I feel like it's my fault or that I'm doing anything wrong, but that the more humble I go, the more that they will receive me. And so I play a lot with where they are and how vulnerable and sensitive they are, and their judgmentalness sometimes is a block of like, oh, you think you're better than me because you know how to do this thing. And it's just a thing about, humans that I've like tried to work with in all of my work, of like kind of go, I just triggered them, I've lost them. And always try to connect, to stay in a connection, and then take that piece and grow, because otherwise I lose them. That's been my experience, if you can relate to that. Now, you're very down to earth, and you have your circle. I don't know if you can relate to that, but that's been my experience of helping to, okay, we can understand this a little bit more. Anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. Thanks for sharing that. And actually, it's really important what you speak to, because we have to meet everybody at their level.
Right.
And the humility and the humbleness comes from the fact that actually this is available to everybody.
Exactly.
And when we come to that place of really understanding that, and we walk that walk, and we breathe that way of being, then we don't come off as arrogant or superior in any way.
Right.
And yes, people can be very sensitive, but that usually what I find is reassuring that, hey, you and I both have the same ability to do this. I've just practiced it more than you.
Right.
Just like you and I have the same ability to drive a car, but if you're 14, you probably haven't practiced as much as me. So you got to take a few driving lessons.
Exactly.
Right, Christy? Who just taught her son to drive. Okay. And so it's, you're right. It doesn't mean he's not capable of it. It just means he hasn't done it as much. Okay. And it's the same thing. We all have this natural ability to connect to the spirit world. Now, some of us are born more open than others. And some of us are born less open than others, but we actually need to learn the facility to open and close. Our connections are meant, and all of our chakras, our whole energy body is meant to pulsate and breathe. It's vibration, polarity, rhythm. Okay, it's supposed to open and close. So this idea of just open your chakras all the time, no, that's not accurate. Okay, you wouldn't open up all the acupuncture meridians at once, would you?
No.
No. What would happen? What would happen to the person if you needled every acupuncture point?
Well, there's the extra points, and they go deep, deep, deep inside. And if you open all those up all at the same time, trying to be like, "Whoa, I'll just take you there and blast you," they say that could make somebody like lose their mind. It's not nice, and it's not fair. So
Exactly.
It's not healthy.
That is what I was expecting you to say.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Okay.
No
So it's the
blasting.
same thing with our chakra system. Okay. We do not want to just be open all the time. And there is actually a lot of misuse of that concept in the spiritual community, where, as you were saying, it just blasts them and they might lose their mind. There are people out there who raise the kundalini, raise the energy, raise the energy, raise the energy. And guess what happens to people? They lose their mind. And then they become very vulnerable and very pliable. And it's not fair. It's not nice, it's not fair, it's not ethical. Okay. And so it's important that we understand that open and close is actually what we need to be able to do. Open and closing the gateways of chi flow. Okay. And so when we talk, and I'm bringing this back to what you were saying about when you're working with individuals who may feel defensive, it's like, well, you're just closed and I'm just open. It doesn't make a difference. I'm just going to help you to open and close, just like I had to learn how to open and close. And it doesn't matter if you started open or close, we still have to learn that facility, that flexibility, that elasticity in our energy field to be able to open and close properly and discern what we let in and what we don't let in and what we keep out. And that usually helps people calm down very quickly when it's presented in that way, because they can feel that authenticity. They can feel that humility of really coming from a place that open isn't better,
Right.
and closed isn't better either, right? It's just someplace on the spectrum. And what is better is being able to have that elasticity, that flexibility, and the ability to be able to move that at will, how we want to do that, to be voluntary in our control of our energy body. That's mastery. That's where the mastery comes in. So, yeah, thank you, Leslie. That's wonderful. Okay. And Rebecca, can you say hi to everybody?
Hello, I'm Beck. I'm from Australia. I've just finished the fundamentals of shamanism with Scott, but I've been on my spiritual journey for quite a long time. But that's more so self-healing than actively seeking out spirit as such, and that's where I'm getting to now.
Great. Thanks, Beck. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for joining us today and taking the time to tune in with us.
It's all right. I woke up right on 8 o'clock, so I was like, I'll quickly jump on.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, perfect timing. Thanks. And we have someone who just joined us. Is your name Zogra?
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi there. This is like the first time I'm here, but I think I signed up, and I'm just interested to know more, and that's why I'm here. And so today, I think I'll be listening more unless there's a question for me that you want me to answer.
I just wanted you to say hi to everybody, and where are you joining us from?
Hi. Well, I'm joining you guys from South Africa, and yeah, on the East Coast. I live on the East Coast.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, and thanks for staying up late to join us.
It's 20 to 1, but I'm a night owl, so it was good that the notification came up.
Yeah, great. And I just have one other question. Have you journeyed before with the drum? And have you seen our tutorial video on how to journey with the drum and meet your power animal?
I have journeyed with the drum, and yeah, I have met, but never with you. So I would like to know more, and I would like to. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to know where I start with what I'm explaining to the group. So thank you, Zogra. Thanks for joining us. Thanks. Okay. Okay, so thanks everybody. And I'm really happy to be hosting everybody from all over the world. Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, the United States, and all over the US, and Hawaii, of course. So I really appreciate everybody tuning in and taking the time. Our main intention today, our primary intention, is to understand how we can better become caretakers and healers of the web of life. And an integral part of that journey is helping to normalize shamanic consciousness in whatever way is appropriate for us. So we each do our own part. Okay, we heard in the beginning, everybody has shared their little path of what they do, what that means to them, and how potentially they're already contributing in that way with the people who we interact with in the world. Okay. So for our journey today, what I want to do is I'd like everybody to journey. You can journey to the upper or lower worlds. Please don't journey in the middle world, okay? You can journey to the upper or lower world, your choice. If you haven't journeyed to the upper world yet, then just go to the lower world, okay? And then when you meet your power animal or your teacher or your spirit guide, whomever you're working with in the upper or lower world, ask a question, okay? Say, please, first of all, explain to me what it really means to normalize shamanic consciousness. What does that mean for me? How can I best contribute in that way? Okay, how can I best help spread this seed of normalizing shamanic consciousness within our society? Okay, and it might be something very small, or it might be something big, or it might be something in between. Okay, so basically you might be given a really large mission, or you might be given a very localized mission, and all of that is okay. Okay, everybody has to do their unique part. Everybody has to weave their unique strand within the web, and we never know. Even the smallest actions that we do send these vibrations out that reverberate through the web of life. Okay, so I could be just planting one plant and taking care of my garden and being told, yes, I need to take care of my garden every day and be a model in that way. And then all of a sudden somebody walks by, sees my garden, gets very inspired and says, you know what? I want to do this big project and buy land and do it in all over the world, and I have the funding sources to do it and to get into sustainable agriculture, sustainable caretaking of the land. I actually met somebody like that a few weeks ago. He's taking Tai Chi classes with me, and he said that he used to be in the corporate world big time, and he used to be a builder and doing a lot of development, and then he was inspired. He had a change of heart, and now he's working with foundations that are buying up hundreds and hundreds of acres, sometimes thousands of acres, and managing them sustainably, and working with authorities like governments and other large landholding places around the world. Okay, and so what changed his consciousness? Why did he get the shift from I'm just going to build and make as much money as I can as a builder and developer to actually now I want to do this thing and create sustainable agriculture for people around the world? Where did that spark come from? Okay, this is what I'm talking about with shamanic consciousness. So he could have walked by your yard if your job was the one to plant, right? So we don't ever judge what we receive in these journeys as not big enough or too big or whatever. Okay, so once again, the journey topic is journey to meet your power animal in the upper or lower world, or your teacher or your ancestor, whomever you're working with. Okay, and then ask, what do I need to know about normalizing shamanic consciousness within my life, and how I can be a model for that, and how can I best contribute to my role as caretaker and healer of the web of life in modeling shamanic consciousness. Everybody got that? Anybody have any questions? Okay, so we're going to journey. I'm going to step off the screen right now and drum, and then everybody get comfortable, relax, find your place to journey. And then afterwards, we're going to come back and we're going to share what we've shown in the journey. Okay, welcome back. Thank you, everybody. Now what we're going to do is we're going to share our journeys with each other. So if you'd like to share, you may share. If you don't feel to share, just say, I don't want to share. That's fine. Who'd like to share first? Go ahead, Mindy.
So mine was pretty short and sweet. I traveled to the upper world. I usually do this by climbing a birch tree and then I fly up. And I met with one of my spirit teachers. She calls herself the grandmother of many faces. And I asked the first question, and it was like what is the meaning? Like, what does it mean to bring shamanic consciousness to, or I forget exactly your wording. And she held a book in her hands and opened it up, and a rainbow kind of like accordioned across the pages, and then it like closed and it opened and folded again. I was doing that for a bit, and then she tossed it, and I saw it land in the hands of a teacher, and it seemed like a kindergarten teacher. And she was doing the same thing with the pages, and this rainbow was shooting across the book as she folded it back and forth. And then there were all these children sitting on the floor in front of her, and they started doing this with their hands, and there were rainbows shooting between their hands, and they were all rocking back and forth with this in unison. And then outside the window of their school, of their classroom, there were trees that were also waving back and forth in the same pattern as them, and all of the little blades of grass and the bugs, and everything was just like a metronome, basically, waving back and forth in unison, in perfect rhythm. And I got a sense that it was like the rhythm of compassion. So I think accepting shamanic ways of thinking on a broad level would bring more compassion. And then my part in it, I was shown, I was standing like chest deep in the ocean, a very large body of water. And I saw like wires of electricity like shooting out of my arms and my fingers and creating these ripples like all around me into the water. And I thought maybe like, oh, is it like I make electronic music? It's like, oh, is it like through my music and song? And no. And it had to do with infusing water with energy and sharing that. And I'm a trained herbalist, and I really like to work with flower essences, but have fallen off of it over the last couple of years. And yeah, I was told that I need to get back into working with flower essences and have groups where we like journey with flower essences, basically. So opening people's minds to shamanic consciousness with the help of flowers.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And also children seem to be a pretty large part of that journey.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was interesting because in my journey as well, I was shown one of my next steps is to be working with children through their parents. So helping parents teach children, to access this realm. And that's been something that's been incubating for about a year and a half, as I've been working on some other courses that I've had to prioritize those. And now those courses are, those curriculums have been written, and they're getting finished up. And so I was given a pretty clear message for 2022 that the work with children is going to be a big part of that coming in next year, and how that's sort of the next phase. First phase had to be working with the adults and having this group and this base around us to move it forth. So I think that as you start to work with the flower essences again and the herbs again, and then you might end up sharing that with children as well as with adults. Just
That'd be great.
a sense from the what was shown to you in the journey that might be along the path as well.
I work as a nanny, so that makes sense also.
So you work as a?
As a nanny.
Oh yeah, great.
Can start incorporating that. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mindy. And I think Leslie, you were going to share.
Yes, and you know what? After listening to Mindy, I'm so glad I'm going after, because I also, whenever I journey, I always swim through the ocean, and then I land on an island and I go up a tree and there's this toucan and it takes me to spirit. And when you said you had a bird tree, I'm like, yes. And so and then much of what you said I connected with. The one thing that for mine is I tend to have very strong beings show up visually that like commune with me. But this was different in that it was more about ambience, and it was there, but it was like almost like it was like no word, like it was like the way you do it is not so much with words. And first it was like I knew it was there, but I couldn't really see the image of the guidance that was communing with me. And it was showing me like it wasn't, I didn't get the rainbow, but I got light, and I got beams of light. I got like flows of light, of different waves of light show, light go. And I was like, this is different. And I was kind of like nervous a little bit, because I'm like, no, you got to tell me, answer these questions. And then one word came up, and that was relax. Relax, and they'll find it. Relax, and they'll find it. Well, my job is really to help people relax so they can find it. So I kind of understood. And then the next thing I saw was sacred symbols. And I work a lot with sacred symbols. In fact, through your journeying, through journeying with you, I began greatly working. I work with crystal sound healing, but I started making crystal grids out of ceramics with sacred symbols. And I started to see the flower of life, and then just all different varieties of colors and shapes with sacred symbols in them. And that's kind of what I do, but I got the clear message that it wasn't so much that I need to act in words, that when people have the ambience, they find it themselves. That's what came to me. And the other interesting thing that happened is one gal from Acutonics called me, and one healing sound school Tamado from Malibu called me during the journey. So I think they connected with us of like, remember right here, us. That's the way. Anyway, that's my experience. So that was good.
Great. Thanks for sharing with that with us, Leslie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, who'd like to go next? Hi, Christy.
So my journey was really interesting. My Native American guide helper showed up and took me straight away to this teepee, and I was sat outside this teepee in a circle of protection with my legs crossed, just sitting, being still, not doing anything. And then I was told just to be still amongst the chaos, be the light that shines. People will be reaching out to you. You're like an anchor. And then I was shown the connection of the inner vision from source through the third eye, and to share the inner vision, the inner wisdom that's channeled through outward to the people. And then they showed me all these people like reaching out to me towards the circle, that's why I was having to sit in the circle of protection with the 4 directions around, because people will want to be like you. They want to know how you're holding this space and walking through this chaos with such ease. So share your vision, share your insight, and they'll come to you. And then when they come to you, when they reach to you, then they remember who they are. They come back to their true nature, the true essence of who they are, then to nature. And they showed me being supported by the web of life, like a hammock around my body, and to be that anchor, helping to shift whatever fears, blocks, or patterns, but they'll reach out. I just have to sit in the stillness. And my guide was like, do you remember, you've done this before, you remember this teepee, remember this circle of protection. And so that was my journey.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Christy. And that's really actually hugely important, this idea of being within the stillness and being the anchor. As we amass more alignment, more connection, more grounding, then it creates a gravity, it creates an attraction, and the people show up. They do reach. They reach for the healing. That's why we go through all that in the intermediate training about, you know, being in our circle of protection and knowing what reaching is healthy and what reaching is not healthy, right? So there's a healthy way to reach in which honors equal exchange, equivalent exchange, fair exchange, and there's an unhealthy way to reach as well. And so, you know, we've already talked about that extensively. You now understand how to discern between the two and how to navigate those worlds. And so that reaching is actually really important. That's what draws people along the path. And just what Leslie was saying earlier in the beginning about, you know, when there's an opening, right? And somebody comes and there's an opening to share, right? Or maybe was that Laura that said that? I don't remember who said that. Somebody was saying when there's an opening to share, then they share. That's the type of thing where they say, oh yeah, there's a reaching. They come, and there's a safety for them to reach, and then to help them find that alignment with the web of life. And that's how we normalize things. Yeah, thanks, Christy. Thanks.
And I'll just say one more thing. It's really interesting because I've opened this Facebook page, this portal of empowerment and daily guidance. And I wondered why I was being guided to do this, because I work with the guidance and usually perhaps some oracle cards as well and some questions of empowerment. And I was like, why am I doing this? You know, this isn't normal. This is like what I do for myself. I don't normally share this with others. My work is in different avenues of healing, but it's very interesting because that's the same feeling I got. I sit in the morning with this guidance and I share this empowerment, this inner vision that comes through, and the people have been reaching out, the people have been commenting, and so from there, then more can open for them to come back to removing those blocks and healing and taking a deeper step forward. So it was an interesting alignment.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and it's helping. You know, it's a little bit of service to share that alignment with people, and yeah, to help people really anchor in to what we're doing here on this planet. Thanks, Christy. Okay, who'd like to share next?
I can, Scott.
Thanks, Sharon.
So with the beginning of the journey, because I knew I was not to stay in the middle world, but I just saw like an image of a person just digging all around themselves, you know, just trying to find the path that they were supposed to be on. And then I saw a vision of just a large forearm and with a hand just reaching and pulling me up into the upper world. So what have you. And then I was just started to ask the questions of how, you know, I was supposed to be contributing to the web of life and helping to normalize shamanic consciousness. And right away, I was feeling like the energy was shifting from what I normally experience in the upper world. So I focused on that, and I was trying to sort through and just get the validity that if, you know, that it was a legit experience or whatever. And at the very end, I've got an image of this, which I think is a female energy. And it's like, I don't know, really, I don't have a name, and so I feel like I'm going to have to continue to journey just to experience what this person may be in my life or who this person is. But anyway, it felt like she was telling me to keep on practicing my shamanic journeying skills, and to keep asking questions that could play themselves out. And actually you can get validity as they reveal, the truth comes forward. So to keep on working on receiving the information but keep it really to myself, like, because I tend to go for information that maybe I want like psychic information, like I want to know answers of what's going to happen in the future and stuff like that. So anyway, so I did ask one question and I got an answer, and it was just like, just keep this to yourself, and if it plays out, you'll know. But to keep on that path of just really doing the journeys right now. And at the same time, I did see books, and it was like, you still need to do a lot more studying and reading on it, as well as the experiencing it. So to have both the grounded knowledge of understanding it, because I learn a lot from you as well, Scott, from your understanding of the whole picture and the greater picture. And so I think it's just spending more time and really getting a solid foundation in it, you know. And so you don't want to misrepresent it, and you don't want to present it in a way that isn't as accurate or as I want to say, like, just doesn't sound like it's valid. You know what I mean? You want to present it in a way that, like, when you do, that people are ready to receive it, and they're not going to be like, can't believe she's fallen for that or something.
Right. Absolutely. Thanks, Sharon, for sharing that. Yeah. The grounding aspect is really important. That's what you're referring to, right? The being spiritually grounded.
Right.
When we're sharing this type of information with people. And so I'll tell you a little story. Some of you guys may have heard this story before that represents that. Is, I live on Kauai, and Kauai is a funny place. We have a lot of different people, a lot of different culture. And anyway, I was down on one of the trails going to a beach, and there is a bird that landed in the tree near me, and it's a bird called a shama. And it's a very good mimicker, this bird. And so I was having a conversation with this bird. I was whistling to it, and it was whistling back to me, and we were having a nice conversation. And this conversation was going on for minutes, 5-10 minutes or so. We're whistling to each other, and it's whistling back, and I'm mimicking it, it's mimicking me. And here comes this bro down the trail, and he's like this big local dude with a surfboard. And he's, one of the things about Kauai is people try to, like, really, push the energy sometimes. He's like, "Oh, what's up, cuz? You some hippie? You talking to the trees? What's up?" And like really like pushing very hard on me, in that way, in kind of like a bullying way. And I just look at him, and I'm very calm, and I go, "Well, of course, I'm talking to the birds. Don't you talk to the birds? It's the Aina. Aina means the land. It's right. Everybody, you got to be connected. You got to be connected to the Aina." And so it's really funny, right? And so he gets, he stops, and he goes, "Yeah, you're right." And he's like, "Actually, my old girlfriend, she used to say those birds, they were like a dead relative." I'm like, "No, they're not a dead relative. They're just birds." But I'm talking to him. He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, she was crazy anyway, man." And then all of a sudden it opened up, and he just started like reaching to me for healing. And he started telling me his whole life story. Right? And I'm like, "Okay, well, we're going to walk down the trail now and go to the beach." And he's like, and then he was going a different way than I was, and we parted, and he's like, "Anytime, bro, anytime you want to come surf on that reef, I'm there every day. It's my left, and you come out and surf." I don't surf. "You come out and surf with me, bro." And so it was so funny, right? Because by having that grounding, he wasn't able to push through me to, kind of bully his way into this idea of what is right or not right. And he was able to accept this idea of shamanic consciousness, of connecting with the web of life and speaking with the web of life, because I was holding that grounding. It wasn't really an intellectual thing. It was just holding that grounding. And I believe that's what you're speaking to when you're talking about, gathering more knowledge, whether it's taking classes or through books. You develop that grounding to be able to share that more with people. Thanks, Sharon. Okay, who'd like to share next?
I'll be happy to go next.
Thanks, Shandell.
So I journeyed to the lower world, and I was met by a mountain lion who was actually new to me. It was pretty exciting. It was our first time we met today. And she walked me to a shore edge through a forest. And as soon as we got to the shore, I knew where we were, because we're at a place where I've journeyed many times. And there I was met by one of my guides that I've worked with a bit, who's a dolphin. And the dolphin took me underwater to a cave, as we've done many times before. And I asked the question, and he showed me dancing and joy. And so I asked a lot of questions about that. You know, is it specifically dancing or is it specifically joy? And the answer I received was just have joy, because when you have joy, other people will want to know where your joy comes from. And then after that, he was swimming around in a infinity symbol. And I kept trying to ask, oh, does it mean this? Does it mean this? Does it mean this? And I got a lot of no's. I wasn't quite getting it. And at some point, he, compromised with me when I asked, is this for me to show people that they're infinite beings and they can achieve whatever they want because they're infinite? And he was like, sort of, sort of. So I was aware of the time. And since I had already come down with a lion, I thought, oh, I better turn around and start going back. So he swam me to the shore. I met up with the lion, and the lion took me into the jungle and into a dark area, and started grooming me and sort of pinning me to the ground to make me nap and rest. And so I actually can't remember if I asked the question to her exactly the same way. I actually don't have that recollection, but she was showing me that I need to take care of myself and I need to have rest. And then I said, well, is there something else I should know about it? And she showed me the shadows and said, stay in the shadows. So I said, you mean shadow work, like help people with their shadow work? And that was a yes. And then we had a little conversation how I should put her name, how I could call her in the future and all that. And then I made my way back up.
Great. Thanks, Shandell. That's beautiful. Yeah, rest and self-care for practitioners is so important. Okay, it's so important. That's a big part of, our training, is how to create those boundaries to have that rest and that self-care. It's so important because that's what gives us our sustainability. That's what gives us our ability to continue for decades sharing this work. So it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? We want to be able to continue with longevity and vitality and sustainability in a thriving way. And I really love what you're sharing about just staying in the joy, and the joy of that connection with Creator and Mother Earth really does attract people, as you were shown in your journey. Oh, wow, how do you do that? Right? And so that will bring that, it will bring the people who are ready to receive the ideas into your orbit and open them up to receive what you have to share. And I also just wanted to add one other thing as well, which is that when you are shown something in a journey that you're not sure of, like your infinity symbol, and you can always just ask, hey, what does it mean? Why are you showing me this? Instead of having to guess so many times, right? You can just ask, say, hey, why am I being shown this? Can you please tell me what this means? What am I supposed to be able to learn from that? And of course, you can always journey back again after this call or at a time that's convenient for you and ask, if you're curious, why did you show me this infinity symbol?
Thank you. That's great. I thought that at the time. I thought, I need to go back and ask again. And it occurred to me, though, that the infinity symbol is a symbol that's used in Sekhem energy work to balance the body. And so I'll go back and ask if it's maybe about balance.
Yeah, just ask, say, why did you show it to me? The way I phrase it is, why was I shown this?
Okay.
And what am I supposed to learn from this symbol? Because the spirit world communicates to us in symbols. And one of the things that's happened in the centuries since indigenous cultures were conquered, and even the millennia, right? If you include the indigenous cultures in Europe that were conquered by the Roman Empire, all cultures have their symbolic language. And so if we were to have grown up in the same clan or the same tribe, we would all have a common symbology, a common symbolic language. But since we didn't, we grew up in different ways, we don't have a common language, and therefore we have to redevelop that symbolic language with the spirit world, and we have to develop that directly ourselves. Okay? Unless we were born into a culture where there was a pre-existing symbolic language with the spirit world, and we grew up speaking in that language and communicating with the spirit world in that language, then we're kind of like newborns, and we're having to acquire that language. And so this is a big part of our process coming into this work in modern times, not being raised within it as children, right? And so that's why it's just good to ask and be open to that. And also, by the way, understand that this is traditional, right? It's traditional in indigenous cultures to ask for clarification. Like that's something that would happen if somebody within a tribe received a vision. He would then bring that vision, he or she would bring that vision to the elders, and the elders would say, okay, wait outside while we meditate on it or journey on it and sit with it or share the pipe together in a ceremony. And the elders would sit with that for, after they had heard the vision, they might sit with it for 2 or 3 days. And then they would summon the person back in and say, okay, this is the meaning of your vision, right? So it's definitely traditional also to ask for clarification if we don't understand immediately what that symbolism is supposed to convey to us. Thanks, Shenda. Okay, who'd like to share next? Jackie, DJ, Zogra, Rebecca.
I can go.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Beck.
That's all right. So I journeyed down to the lower world, and Mr. Eagle, Miss Elephant, and Mr. Lion were there to greet me. I asked them how I can incorporate shamanism into everyday life. And Mr. Eagle said that for myself, it's inspiring people by being free above 3D illusions and stepping into my power and strength to be seen. The elephant had the advice and said to stay in love and be and embody love, show compassion that I have for myself and for others, be warm, kind, and caring, forgive but not forget, be firm yet supple, and be an inspiration to those trying to find their inner power. And then I asked the lion, and Mr. Lion took me on a little ride, jumped on his back, and he took me to see all my kind deeds and said just to keep it up, and to keep being inspiring, kind, authentic, be a beacon of light, have courage, bravery, faith, conviction in my actions and words, stand up for myself and everything right in this world while staying grounded to fight, speak up, and acknowledge and defeat the injustices in the world as well by staying grounded and just embodying love and joy, really. And that's how I can share my light and the spirit with the world.
Thanks, Beck. Thanks for sharing that. And that's very much true, right? When we embody it, we set that example. We become a model. It's the same way that we learn as children. We learn from the modeling that we witness. So embodiment is really important. That's a huge part of spiritual grounding and being able to move forward and modeling that consciousness. Okay, who else would like to share?
I can go.
Thanks, DJ.
I went to the lower world and met up with my old friend Bear. And I asked him the question about how do we normalize shamanism and how does it connect with the web of life? And he started to laugh at me, and he went, "Oh, DJ, like, when are you going to get it?"
Cheeky Bear.
Oh, he is so cheeky. And he said, "Do you not think that your work in shamanism and learning it is what has got you to this place?" And I kind of looked at him and said, I don't get it. And And he said, think about all that you have done in the last 2.5 years. And he said, you know, although some people have been threatened by the changes you've made, you have inspired many, many people. And 33 months ago, I had weight loss surgery and I've lost 180 pounds, and I have been really working on my health. And Bear was absolutely right. I have lost some friends because they don't know what to do with this new person that's so confident and strong. And I'm inspiring others. And he said, you know, you don't have to go and stand on the mountain and scream at everybody to say, come and join shamanism, because it will help empower you. It will help you change. It will help you grow. You just quietly do it. And he said, you know, who was the person that stood? We've had a week of solid rain. And I opened my door the other morning and there was this little tiny bird that probably doesn't belong in Ontario, Canada. But he probably got off track because of the storms we've been having. And he said, even though I was late for work, he said, you stood there and talked to the bird for 10 minutes before the bird flew off. And I went, oh yeah, I did that, didn't I? Because I wanted to make sure the bird was okay.
That's
And
so
he said,
beautiful.
and he said, that's what you're doing. And that's how you're going to bring other people on this path, because they're going to want to know why, you know, how did you get to this place? Why are you at peace? Why are you full of joy? He said that I inspire others, even though it feels like I'm standing still, the work is going on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, DJ. Thanks for sharing about the bird. That just brought such a smile to my heart to hear that. That's so how I live my life. And
Yeah.
and my people just know, like, oh, he's 10 minutes late because he was talking to something. It was
Yeah.
great. I try to be on time for our Zoom calls. But if I'm ever late, that's why. Okay, so thank you for sharing, and thank you also for sharing your inspiring personal story about you know, what you have, you know, your path, your personal path. And it is true. You will, in life, certain relationships close. We just talked about this yesterday in our advanced training about opening and closing. And we just talked about how sometimes relationships need to close in order for other relationships to open. And if somebody looks at you and go, wow, this woman has transformed her life in a really positive way, and I don't like it, I want her to be the disempowered, needy one that she used to be, well, they're probably not your friend, and it's probably okay that those relationships closed. And all it is making room for new relationships, to open relationships with people who are going to respect and support you, just as you respect and support them.
Thank you. This is the Canadian Thanksgiving weekend coming up. So the other thing Bear reminded me was to spend some time in reflection and gratitude, because it's Thanksgiving, at least here.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, DJ. And yeah, every morning, really, we try to spend a little time in gratitude and reflection about, you know, what we have here with the Web of Life, how grateful we are, how blessed we are to have what we have. So yeah, thank you, DJ.
You're welcome.
Jackie?
Sure. Hi, guys. Sorry I'm late. It actually is perfect, though. What I would say is I did shamanic course with Scott 3 years ago, and it hasn't been my path in journeying. I just recently left my job after 20 years at a hospital and did a trip out west. And my focus was to really come back to nature and be one with. And so it was perfect timing to have this be the topic of consciousness within the web. And so thank you for holding this container for me tonight and listening to all your lovely journeys, and just deepening into, for me, what's also a part of the comprised bigness of how we all navigate in the world. So yeah, we'll see what if journeying is back on the table for me. So thank you all for holding that for me tonight, because I will say I'm one of those who has not been talking with the birds, who does not sit with nature. It's been more esoterical. And so grounding in and bringing that along with everything else is it's what's next. So yeah, maybe I'll journey on that later tonight.
That sounds great. That's a good thing to journey on. And
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that, Jackie.
Sure.
It's really, everybody has their own path and
Right.
everybody has their own timing. And
Exactly.
what I've noticed throughout, the teaching is some people, they get involved with the coursework and they go straight through like in a matter of months. And others, we have other detours that we take. And a lot of that is because we have things within our life that need attention in physical, ordinary reality. And so it wouldn't be appropriate to move forward to the next level in the spirit world until we resolve whatever has had to happen in the physical world. And sometimes that stuff takes time. It takes time, right? Because we've weaved our lives for decades, and the webs we've woven maybe are a little complex and take a little time to extricate ourselves from or to move around. And then when we finally do, we're like, oh, okay, now I'm ready to move forward to the next. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you were able to join us. Thank you. And Zogra, would you like to share with us? It's okay if you don't. If you do, you're welcome to. And if not, that's fine as well. Okay. So I'm going to share my journey, and then we're going to be done for the day. And I just want to first say thank you all very much for being here. I love this group that continues to show up for these Healing for the Web journeys. It brings me a lot of joy to see how this is spreading and to know that each person's seed that they're planting is also creating ripples out there in the world and making a positive difference to the way that we relate with the web of life. What I was shown in my journey was pretty clear. First of all, that I am doing my part. I'm following my path of helping to normalize shamanic consciousness through teaching, through healing sessions, through holding the web of life meetings, through writing, through what I do, through what I embody in my work, and also day to day when I'm not working. So I'm following that path. I've been following that path for a number of years, and it feels really good to be following that path to help normalize shamanic consciousness. And then I was shown that as we discussed earlier, it's just so important as far as creating those ripples that keep emanating outwards in how we can help the web of life by sharing this shamanic consciousness, because when shamanic consciousness is normalized, we become empathic with the web of life. We become empathic with the earth. We do things like what DJ shared, and oh, there's a little bird that needs help. Let me talk to it for a little while and make sure it's okay. Right? In that moment, we are acting as are part of the web of life to help that little bird that may have been blown off course, to make sure that it's okay. And when my daughter rescues a baby chick that has been abandoned by its mom and helps it, that's doing our part in the web of life. We become empathic with the web of life. So when we have that consciousness, we cannot be the ones that simultaneously pollute and destroy the web of life. It's inherently in conflict. We can't do it. We can't bring ourselves to do it. Right? It's only when we're numb and unaware that we destroy that which gives us life. Okay? Otherwise, if we're aware, we caretake that. It's natural. Now, we may need to learn more. We may need to refer to books. We may need to, have more learning in order to be better caretakers. But if we don't have the inspiration to be caretakers, the learning isn't going to do anything. We're not even going to want to learn. right? So the first step is that inspiration, that desire, that natural desire to become caretakers of the web of life. And so the spreading of shamanic consciousness, the normalizing of shamanic consciousness, is really the connection between us as humans and Mother Earth, between us and the web of life, and bringing that into consciousness so that it's part of who we are. It just becomes what we do without having to think about it. And it becomes natural as making yourself 10 minutes late for work because there's a little birdie that needs to be spoken to. And it's normal. To me, I hear that, I say, that's beautiful. That's how we should all live our lives, right? That if some other people might have a different type of judgment about it, but I have a very positive judgment about that experience, okay? And so I was shown that, and then at the end of my journey, I was just shown children, lots and lots of children. And I was shown that in this next cycle, for me, is going to be about how to bring this awareness to children. And I don't know what that's going to look like yet. I was told that I'm to journey on that. And whether that's through some form of course curriculum or something else, I don't know. But it has been percolating and incubating for a number of years. In fact, one of the women who graduated our training about 1.5 years ago, she's in the process of releasing a children's book called Journey Along with the Eagle. And it's a series of journeys based on our intermediate training, so to the different animals that we work with in the intermediate class. And it's bedtime stories for young children. And they go to visit the eagle and the snake and the bear and the beaver and the owl and the turtle and the deer and the buffalo and the dolphin. And it's normalizing shamanic consciousness in children. And it's so beautiful to see this coming out in the world. She's asked me to write a little introduction for the book, which I just completed last night. And her name is Liliane Clouvier. She's in the Netherlands, and it's going to be published soon. When it's out, I'll make sure to put it out on the newsletter as well to help spread the word. But something along these lines to see how this is spreading to the children, because I was shown a similar image to what you were shown, Mindy, of children sitting in a circle and this becoming their first language. And so part of this is also about coming back to the language of symbolism that we were discussing earlier. And because we didn't come from a culture in which we learned as young children to speak with the spirit world, we've had to learn that language as adults, the most of us. And imagine what it would be like if it was your first language, if you were a native speaker rather than just a fluent speaker. Maybe you're not even a fluent speaker yet, maybe you're still learning and you're conversational, right? But a native speaker of that language is someone who learns from the time they're born that this is how we speak with the spirit world, and this is how we develop our language of communication with the spirit world. So they acquire that language at the same time as they acquire spoken language. But we didn't do that. So I'm shown this is going to be part of my journey over the next year. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know it's going to be part of the journey. So thank you, everybody. Thank you again for joining us today. Really appreciate everyone's spirit in wanting to make a positive contribution in the way that you do. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thank you, Scott.